Hello and welcome back to the Second Take Podcast. My name is Calvin Williams. I'm here with my co-host Marco Rogers, and today we have a very nice episode of recapping college football, another Heisman update for the season, a little bit of an NFL recap, and then we'll finish it off with NFL predictions and college football predictions and our underdog predictions. And by the way, I am on an absolute streak right now with underdog predictions. So, Marco, your underdog season's not looking too good, is it? Yeah, but you were up by a lot in the start. You were up by a lot in the start though, but now it's 3-5 to 3-5. So we're back in it for sure. All right. To start it off, we have Clemson taking down number 14 Syracuse. This is really disappointing in my opinion. Garrett Schrader did not get it done. It is not the end of Clemson's playoff run officially. And to be honest, I really just wanted Syracuse to win here. Clemson is still very overrated. They did not play great in this game by any means. They're actually trailing for most of the game. If they hadn't scored 17 unanswered in the fourth quarter, this is Syracuse's win for sure, but they ended up getting it done. 27-21, fourth quarter run from Cade Klubnik, actually, who came in for DJ Uigalele. Got it done, and Clemson was able to win. Marco?
Yeah, this was just a really tough game for Syracuse. They're up 21-10. They scoop and score when Clemson had the ball at the 1 yard line, which was huge for them. And Clemson kept on giving them opportunities, like big turnovers, fumbles, picks, great field position after 3 and outs, and Garrett Schrader simply was not getting it done. That was how this game went. And then later, Syracuse's defense got a little bit tired, lots of injuries, and they just ended up not getting it done. But this game, it's on Syracuse's offense. They only scored 14 points really due to the scoop and score, and they just could not move the football. Credit to Clemson, but they will stay overrated probably for the rest of this year until they meet a decent team in the playoffs.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a Clemson team that I can't really, after this one, you can't really see them missing the playoffs, which is disappointing because they'll probably get blown out once they get there and take a spot from a very deserving team. But it sucks, but it does happen a lot of years. Moving on, we have Oklahoma State getting a huge win over Texas. Quinn Ewers has looked good in the games he's played. He almost led Texas to a win over Alabama before he got hurt. But as Marco was talking about to me before we started, Quinn Ewers looked absolutely terrible. Marco, you want to expand on that?
I think 19 for 49, 2 touchdowns and 3 picks speaks for itself. When you go 19 for 49 in the Big 12, that is not great, especially with the receiving core he has with Xavier Worthy. He has Bijan Robinson. If you have Bijan Robinson, you should be able to dump it off to him in the Big 12. He picks up 15 yards because no one knows how to tackle. But he was just missing open receivers who, it's not like the guys weren't getting open. He just couldn't hit them. He looked terrible. Maybe it's because he's that young. He's technically a freshman this year since he reclassified last year. And just impressive from Oklahoma State. Their defense didn't really have to do much since Ewers was just missing. Spencer Sanders looks like a Heisman dark horse possibly. They always have a receiver that steps up big this week, Bryson Green. Just overall solid team. Not a terrible defense, not a good defense. But pretty solid defense for the Big 12 with Oklahoma State. I think if they went out, they could possibly make a playoff run.
The only reason I don't see them making a playoff run is because how good this makes TCU look. Especially if they won against Kansas State, which we're going to talk about in a second. This Texas team almost beat Alabama. Oklahoma State, I know this transitive property doesn't work totally in sports, but just thinking about it logically, TCU took down Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is taking down a Texas team that almost beat Alabama. That probably means TCU is a pretty good team, and we could definitely see a Big 12 team for the first time in the playoffs this year. So expanding on that, number 8 TCU coming back from a huge deficit, 28 unanswered, to take down number 17 Kansas State. This was a really fun game to watch late. Kansas State looked like the better team early. They were dominating quite a bit at the end of the first half, 28-17. But then TCU 21 answered in the second half, held Kansas State to 0 points in the second half. Ended up winning 38-28. Huge win. Great fight from Max Duggan, as we've seen from him in previous weeks. Just great win for TCU. Marco?
Yeah, I mean, when you're up 28-10 in the Big 12, that usually means you're gonna win the game like 56-38 or something. And their offense just kind of fell apart. Honestly, I was somewhat surprised. I wasn't surprised that the Kansas State defense allowed that many points in the end. But I mean, obviously, Adrian Martinez goes down, but Will Howard early on in the game, the backup. I believe true freshman QB. He looked very solid. He just got injured, had to come back in. Maybe that messed up his rhythm a bit. But I just want to say TCU, I think Quentin Johnston might be one of the best receivers in college football. He's came out of nowhere this year. What a performance by him. And Kendre Miller, the TCU running back, really controlled this game. And they just dominated the time of possession 38-22, which in a lot of these games that are pretty close, the time of possession when the time of possession is dominated, that tends to be the team that wins. And just overall, I'm impressed with TCU this year. I don't think they're going to make a playoff run. I think they'll trip up somewhere, but still a nice win for TCU.
Yeah, definitely. All right, do you want to take LSU Ole Miss?
Yes. Sure. This was my upset prediction. I saw it coming. Ole Miss, not a very good team considering they were number 7 in the country. Jackson Dart had never looked great. He didn't look great. 19 for 34, 280 yards, 1 pick, no touchdowns. And Jaden Daniels, I mean, he does not have a very good O-line. He goes 21 for 28, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Running the ball, 25 carries, 120 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's just like he's a workhorse with his arm and a workhorse with his legs. He's absolutely carrying this team. In my opinion, in terms of what he does for this team, he might be one of the more valuable players in all of college football. I mean, if they had just an average QB, this team would probably be around 4-4. But he's looked great. LSU, they'll be looking to have a trap game for a lot of highly ranked teams coming up.
Yeah, definitely. LSU is not a team you want to have on your schedule, especially with their record not expressing how good of a team that they are. Moving on, we have number 9 UCLA losing at number 10 Oregon. This is a really disappointing game for me. UCLA had looked great in the previous weeks, beating Utah, huge win there. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Zach Charbonnet have been a dynamic duo all season. And don't get me wrong, both of them played pretty well in this game. 30 points can compete with a lot of teams, but unfortunately, when Bo Nix goes 22 for 28, 283 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, there's not much you can do. I mean, Bo Nix put up a Heisman performance this game, and UCLA just simply couldn't keep up. Marco?
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix, what a performance. When he's hot, he is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Just he usually isn't, and he usually is pretty bad. But Oregon, I mean, if they keep on winning like this against good teams, which the Pac-12 does have, they could make the playoffs. Ever since that Georgia loss, they've looked like a completely different team. And this probably is the end for UCLA's nice season. I think they'll still finish as a top 15 team, probably make a New Year's Six bowl, but I just don't see them making the playoffs with a loss like this.
Yeah, I agree. This is a brutal loss. I would say definitely probably eliminates UCLA's playoff chances. And you know what? I saw a crazy take. I saw some people saying that Bo Nix should be top 5 in the Heisman vote. Mark, do you have anything to say about that?
I mean, he had one good game against a pretty bad defense in UCLA. That's quite the overreaction. He looked good in this game, but he's just so inconsistent. Next week, for all we know, he'll throw 5 interceptions, no touchdowns, and maybe ruin this team. I mean, he just is so inconsistent. He can play great like a Heisman contender, or he can be terrible. So that's a complete overreaction.
Yeah, I would say I would have to agree with that. All right, moving on. Speaking of Heisman, we have a little bit of a Heisman update for you guys. So we're going to start it off with Tennessee's own quarterback, Hendon Hooker. As of yet, he's looked like the best player in college football. Tennessee's looked like the best offense in college football. And to have the best offense, you need a quarterback that can get it done. And he certainly has this season. He played UT Martin this week, so obviously not a lot of competition. He didn't play the whole game. But this dude has been the reason Tennessee was able to beat Alabama, and he's going to be the reason why Tennessee is looking dangerous later into the season. If they somehow beat Georgia, he's going to be the reason that Tennessee makes the playoffs. So, Hendon Hooker, no doubt in my mind, he is number one for now. Not sure how long he'll stay there, but we're just going to live with that for now. Marco?
Yeah, their offense is putting up over 50 points per game, which is crazy. Hendon Hooker, I believe he's the only quarterback in college football with over 2,000 yards, 18 touchdowns. His only pick was because he was hit as he was thrown against Bama. Still put up 5 touchdowns in that game. He is just flat out the best quarterback in college football. He can move. He's not the fastest, but he's a pretty big body, tough to bring down, and that adds to his game. And his deep ball is just the best I have seen in a long time in college football. He is truly a special player.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, we have CJ Stroud. I don't like Ohio State, so I'm not going to be super enthusiastic about this guy. But he has thrown for over 2,000 yards this season, 28 touchdowns. Statistically, he is the best, probably the best quarterback in the country. But then again, they've played a lot of weak Big Ten teams. The Big Ten is very top-heavy this year with Michigan, Ohio State, not really Penn State, mainly Michigan, Ohio State. And then the rest of the teams are pretty weak. So, definitely impressive performances from him so far. But he's going to need good performances against teams like Michigan if he wants to prove himself as a Heisman winner. Marco?
One thing I would like to say is the one good defense he played against this year, which is Iowa. Sure, you can look at it. He had 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, 275 yards, but he started at the Iowa 30-yard line almost every time, and they ended up kicking 8 field goals that game. That was the least impressive 40-point victory I've ever seen. That's not just being completely biased towards Michigan. That was just unimpressive to me. I think they should have won that game by 20 if Iowa had a semi-decent offense. And I feel like he's a very good quarterback, easily top 5. I just don't see him playing well. Even against Penn State, they have a pretty good pass defense. I think Ohio State struggles in that game. I think that game will end up being pretty close. But next week, maybe he can move up on this list and take the 1 spot.
Yeah, definitely. All right, can you take the next one?
Bryce Young at 3. He's been insane this year. Even in that loss, he played just as well as Hendon Hooker did, honestly. He just is so good. His O-line has been surprisingly bad this year. He doesn't have a standout receiver that he gets to throw to right now. Ja'Cory Brooks is his main target, but he's just having to get the ball to a lot of guys. Jahmyr Biggs, the running back, might be his best target. And last year he has Jamison Williams, he has John Mechie to rely on, experienced, fast receivers that can just run by defense. This year he's having to do it on his own, and he's still putting up insane production. I love what I see out of Bryce Young.
Yeah, this guy is Houdini in the pocket. He just finds ways to not get sacked. Obviously, Alabama has a great O-line. They always do, but this dude, even he just makes plays out of nothing. And I agree. I really like Bryce Young. Next up, we have Blake Corum, Michigan running back. He is arguably the best player on this list. Unfortunately, Heisman has a quarterback award. Everyone always says that. It just is. Quarterbacks win the Heisman Trophy 99% of the time. It'll probably be the same this year, but I could definitely see this guy going to New York. He's just had a phenomenal season, no matter what. Penn State came into the Michigan game, top 5 FBS rushing defense, and he tore through them. This Michigan O-line is a huge part of that, but Blake Corum is phenomenal. He's able to make cuts that no one else can. I love having him. I love having him on the Michigan team. And he's just phenomenal. Marco?
Yeah, I mean, he's been great this year. I mean, the thing is, if you want to be a non-quarterback, you have to have, like, not just a historic year, you have to have, like, a record that nobody's ever going to break, like Devontae Smith. He went crazy that year. There was no debate. But, I mean, Corum's going to probably be the leading rusher this year, probably going to have the most yards per carry. But he just isn't, like, having a historic type of year. I mean, there's always a great running back, so he just isn't having like a historic enough year to win the Heisman as a running back when that hasn't happened since 2016, and that was Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry is probably top 3 greatest college running backs of all time, so it's hard to compare to him a lot. Finally, our number 5 on the list, Caleb Williams, USC quarterback. This guy, I mean, he's been very good this year. USC did have a loss against Utah, but if they can win out, he'll definitely be considered for this award. He's just been phenomenal. Like, even in that loss to USC, this was not his fault in the slightest. USC's defense just couldn't help him out. But he's been great. He obviously transferred from Oklahoma with his coach, Lincoln Riley. And he's continued to have just a great career with him. I think he'll have a good NFL career, just his play style. Marco, do you have any comments on Caleb Williams?
No, I mean, he's been great. Even in that loss, he looked good. This defense is just so bad. I don't see them winning out.
Yeah, definitely hard to see that happening. But definitely a New York potential type of guy. Moving on, a little bit of an NFL recap. Not much here. Lions and Patriots both lose just terribly. And there's not much hope for the Lions here, but Patriots got a little bit going. Marco, anything to say about your team?
We did not get much going last night. Lost by 20 to the Bears. Not great.
Yeah, but, I mean, your record's better than us.
We lost by 20 to the Bears.
I guess, yeah. Definitely tough loss for the Patriots there. But, I mean, Bears are 3-4.
We have no quarterback.
They're not good, but yeah. All right, moving on. Yeah, nothing else really happened in the NFL. CMC traded to the 49ers, which is a pretty big deal, but he just learned the playbook, so Chiefs were still able to get it on there. Moving on to some NFL predictions. Patriots at Jets, battle of the Bads. But I think the Jets are getting this one done. The Jets have looked better than they have ever. And with 5-2 record. Patriots actually do have the spread on this one by 1.5, but I think Joe Flacco leading this offense. Just kidding, Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson leading this offense. He's gonna be good. I think he's gonna get it done here. Jets beating Patriots. Marco?
I mean, Jets are actually very good this year, but they don't have a running back due to Breece Hall's injury. Zach Wilson's pretty bad. He'll throw like 5 pick sixes. That'll probably be all of our points. I see us winning probably just off pick sixes. Our offense can't really score besides Ramondre Stevenson. Probably going to be like 21-17 Pats, 2 pick sixes, 1 75-yard rushing touchdown.
Interesting stat line there. Moving on, Ravens at Bucks. Definitely a big, supposed to be a big matchup here. Only problem is the Buccaneers have not been able to put up points all year. Tom Brady should have retired last year, but instead he decided to get greedy, and he has not had a very good season this year. They just have not been able to put up a lot of points. I think the Ravens are getting it done here. They're probably the best 4-3 team that could be 6-1 right now. And I think the Ravens behind Lamar Jackson, who has had a down week the past couple of weeks. I still think the Ravens are a very solid team, and I think they're getting it done. Marco?
Oh, yeah, talk about a down week. Tom Brady. He lost to an XFL QB in Walker last week for the Panthers. Mike Evans had a terrible drop that week. I mean, that was probably the worst drop I've ever seen in the NFL this year. But I think Ravens get it done. Buccaneers are pretty bad. I don't see them making the. Actually, I see them making the playoffs, sneaking in just because it's Brady. Probably going like a 5-game losing streak when they're about to face elimination. But I see Ravens winning this game pretty easily. I see them going on a big run here and getting that record up.
Yeah, I agree. The Ravens are definitely on the come up. Especially with the amount of time that they've been leading in their games, but still found a way to lose. I think they're going to turn that around quite a bit. Moving on, we have Dolphins at the Lions. Even though the Lions are my team, the Dolphins are winning this game. Dolphins got a win last week. I mean, no surprise there, but they have looked very good at times this season, and the Lions just have not. Simple as that. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, too much for this banged up Lions secondary. Dolphins are probably going to put up 60 points, and the Lions are going to lose by 45. Marco?
The question is who's going to guard Tyreek Hill? And if you guard Tyreek Hill, if you triple team him, who's going to guard Jalen Waddle? You can't guard both of them. Dolphins are going to put up over 30 points. Lions won't put up more than 20. I got Dolphins big here.
Yeah, no argument there. Finally, we have 49ers at the Rams. 49ers making that new addition of Christian McCaffrey. One of the most overhyped offenses I've seen in a while. They just do not have a quarterback, and that is that. I mean, the 49ers don't have a quarterback, but the Rams have not looked good at all this year, in my opinion. I think the 49ers are getting it done here. I think Christian McCaffrey will learn the playbook a little bit more, and it'll be a big week for the 49ers to turn around their season. Marco?
Yeah, I mean, this game was supposed to sort of decide the NFC West, these two matchups between the 49ers and Rams. I want to talk about the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, Kenneth Walker has looked like one of the best running backs in the NFL so far this year after looking like the best running back in college football last year. And Geno Smith looks like a beast. They could easily win the NFC West, but for this game, I see the Rams winning. I think they figure it out defensively, which has been their problem. The O-line starts to figure it out. I got Rams. I just don't think the 49ers can win games with Jimmy Garoppolo at QB.
Yeah, but if the 49ers can somehow trade up, I could definitely see them being a very good team in the future. They've had a solid defense for a while. I think that final piece, that final puzzle piece of a quarterback, I think a Super Bowl run could definitely be in their future. Moving on, we have college football predictions. Number 4 Michigan versus little baby brother Michigan State. I mean, 22.5 point spread on this one. Definitely ambitious. I think Michigan's going to get it done here. I'm not going to do any score prediction. But it's just always tough playing rivals, even when it's at home. Michigan State has shown spurts where they could be a decent team. I don't think they are. They're not good, but they have shown spurts. They have Peyton Thorne, who's an overrated quarterback. They have what's his name? Jaden Reed at wide receiver, who was very good last season. But without Kenneth Walker, they've had a lack of production on offense. And Michigan will be able to dominate this game on the ground with Blake Corum. Hopefully we can see some good passing from J.J. McCarthy, which we haven't seen too much of all season. I think Michigan's getting it done here. Margo?
One thing I would like to say to be unbiased here is MSU, during that sort of 3-game losing skid where they lost to Maryland, Washington, and Minnesota, their whole team was injured. They had more second strings than starters. Now, with that bye week, they're starting to get a lot of guys back. Their secondary is still bad, but not going to be that bad. Michigan won't be able to completely bully them. I mean, this is still a pretty talented team, even though they haven't looked very good. Peyton Thorne, in my opinion, is the main thing holding this offense back. I think it's a pretty good offense. Keon Coleman, great football player, solid basketball player for MSU. He's been great this year with those jump balls. The only question I have in this game is are Michigan's pretty undersized corners going to be able to stop those fade routes with Jaden Reed and Keon Coleman, which is pretty much MSU's entire offense. In 2020, that's how they beat us. Throw it up to our receivers, hope that they can moss our corners. And when that works, that's when they tend to beat us. When it doesn't work, that's when we tend to dominate. I think this game will for the Michigan defense versus MSU offense might come down to that. But I think Michigan's offense should be able to move the ball pretty well. I won't give a score prediction, but I think it'll be a little closer than people think. But I don't see a huge upset coming here.
Yeah, one thing I will like to say is last year they beat us completely on the ground game, but the year before that, like you said, they beat us completely through the air. Coming up on Saturday, I think they'll try to beat us through the air, but I also think we'll utilize our freshman cornerback, Will Johnson, a lot more. He's a very talented physical corner. I think he'll be able to win some jump balls against those talented receivers, and I think he'll be able to prevent them from getting too many big plays. Do you have anything to say on that?
He's looked very solid recently. I just don't think he's a big enough body yet. He's still pretty skinny, but I do think Michigan's corners should be fine this game. The secondaries look good this year. But yeah, that's definitely the matchup I'll be interested to see due to the secondary not really playing any receivers besides Maryland, and Maryland actually passed the ball all over us.
Yeah, they actually destroyed our secondary. Moving on, we have number 2 Ohio State at number 13 Penn State. I would say that the rankings make this game seem like it's going to be a lot closer than it will be. But I think Penn State will give Ohio State a little bit of a wake-up call. I think Penn State has a solid rushing defense, although Michigan made it look like they didn't. And Ohio State's pass game is their strong suit, and Penn State's secondary is above average, I'd say, which is better than Ohio State has seen almost this entire year. So I think Penn State's offense will do a better job than Iowa did of giving their defense good field position to work with against this Ohio State offense. And I think this game will be a challenge for Ohio State. I still think Ohio State will cover the 15.5 point spread. But like I said, that offense will make it tougher. That Penn State offense will make it tougher on Ohio State with that field position than Iowa did. I'd say Ohio State's taking this one 35-20. Marco?
Yeah, so I think we might see quite a few upsets coming this week. The next 2 games, I'm going to be picking the upset. And this game, I'm not going to say Penn State's going to pull it off. I think it's going to be close. The thing about Ohio State is the talent they've played. They've been having 5 stars against 3 stars every single game, 5 stars against 2 stars. This game is going to be 5 stars against 4 stars and 5 stars that Penn State has. That's going to be a big difference. Guys that are athletic enough to guard these receivers. No secondary. Like Iowa has a bunch of guys that grew up on a farm in their secondary. And Penn State has Joey Porter Jr., one of the best corners in college football. I think he can probably shut down Marvin Harrison Jr. They got some guys that can guard Jackson Smith and Jigba with the speed. And I think this is a better Penn State team than they looked against Michigan. I think we saw their worst against Michigan. And I think if Ohio State doesn't come here ready to play, Penn State's going to win this game. In Happy Valley, they're going to be going crazy. It's going to be a tough game. I think Ohio State wins this by 3 to 10 points.
Oh, I would love to see that. Ohio State getting a little bit of a scare. Moving on, we have number 19 Kentucky at number 3 Tennessee. Definitely an interesting one here, especially with Kentucky having Will Levis back. Obviously, that loss, they were without him. Going to be an interesting one here. Tennessee has looked like the best offense in college football. I think they're going to continue that here. I think Hendon Hooker, these talented Tennessee wide receivers are going to get it done. And although Kentucky's going to put up some points against Tennessee, I think Tennessee's going to continue to be one of those top dog teams for sure. Marco?
Oh, I did say I would pick the upset for the next couple games. This is included. Kentucky, they lost to South Carolina.
Wow.
Will Levis wasn't playing. I know Tennessee beat Bama, I feel like that's Tennessee's absolute best. I don't think they're really going to get better than that this year. And this Kentucky defense is good. They are better than Bama's defense. Even in that game they lost, their defense got turnovers. They were stopping South Carolina. The reason they lost that was because their quarterback didn't know how to throw the ball because they didn't have a quarterback. And Will Levis, I think he goes off this game. Tennessee doesn't really have a defense. I think they have guys flying down the field. Tavion Robinson has a big game. They can probably run the ball all over Tennessee, control the clock. I think that's what they have to do. I think Chris Rodriguez has a huge game running it. Kadarius Moak also has a big game with those two big running backs who will just physical, big running backs. They'll run all over Tennessee. They'll just control the time of possession, limit Hooker's touches, guard Hyatt. That's all Bama really had to do to win that game, and they decided not to. I got Kentucky in a very close one, pulling off a shocking upset.
I mean, that would just be absolutely crazy and definitely good for Michigan's cause in the future. Our final college football recap is going to be number 9 Oklahoma State at number 2. Or sorry, not recap. College football prediction is going to be number 9 Oklahoma State at number 22 Kansas State. This is going to be interesting. Obviously, Oklahoma State had that loss to TCU, and then TCU came back to beat Kansas State last week. So definitely a matchup setting up to be a good one. I think Kansas State's winning this one for sure. Kansas State, I mean, they kind of had the one last week against TCU in the bag. Deuce Vaughn looking like he's just a super talented, super fast running back. I think he's going to have a good game. This Oklahoma State defense is definitely subpar, allowing almost 30 points per game. And although this Oklahoma State offense is very good behind Spencer Sanders, I think Kansas State's getting it done here. Margo?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. I mean, Kansas State's defense is probably the best in the Big 12. The only reason why they let up late to TCU is because the offense was giving them great field position every time. Defense allowed 17 points through a half to an elite TCU offense. That's very impressive for Big 12. I think this defense figures it out, holds Oklahoma State to under 40. That's all you really have to do in the Big 12. If you hold the opponent to under 40 and you have a good offense, you'll probably win. Deuce Vaughn will be untouchable this game. If they can get a hand on him, they can tackle him. I just don't think they'll get a hand on him. He's too shifty, too small, too quick. I see him having possibly 200 all-purpose yards through the air and on the ground. He has a great game. I got Kansas State winning this game by a couple of scores.
Yeah, one thing I want to acknowledge is Kansas State is a very out of characteristic Big 12 team, seeing as their offense is good, putting up almost 30 points a game, which is but their defense is one of the more impressive ones in college football, allowing just 19.7 points per game. So especially in a conference like the Big 12 where teams are just scoring, in that this happens year after year, this Kansas State team has a very, very impressive defense. Moving on, underdog predictions. I'm going to go first. I'm going to say Louisville over number 10 Wake Forest, top 10 upset right here. I mean, Louisville put up a fight against Clemson. Don't get me wrong, brought them to overtime. Clemson just beat Syracuse. So obviously, Clemson's a decent team. I still think they're overrated. But I also think this Wake Forest team is very, very overrated. There's no way they should be a top 10 team. The reason I think Louisville is going to win this one is because they're being led by one of the most statistically impressive and almost odd quarterbacks that we've seen in a while in Malik Cunningham. Almost like a Lamar Jackson-esque quarterback. Obviously not as good as Lamar Jackson, but he has already thrown for over 1,000 yards passing, which is like, okay, pretty average. But he's also ran for over 500 yards rushing this season, which is just crazy. I mean, he's ran for half of his passing yards, which is just crazy for a quarterback, even for those dual threat QBs. Super impressive quarterback. He leads his team in rushing. I think this will be a close game for sure, but this out of characteristic, or this out of what's the word? this non-normal quarterback for Louisville is going to throw Wake Forest off balance, and I think Malik Cunningham and Louisville is going to get it done. Marco?
Yeah, I mean, Wake Forest does not have a very normal offense either. I mean, they have like the weirdest RPO ever where Sam Hartman pretty much holds the ball with the running back for 8 seconds until the defense either bites or lets them run it for 10 yards. If the defense bites, it's a 75-yard touchdown every time. If they don't, it's 10 yards. This offense is like so odd and unstoppable. It's ACC defense. Wake Forest has a bunch of 3-stars on defense. Malik Cunningham runs all over them. I think it'll be a close scare, but I see Wake Forest getting it done and staying overrated. Mine, I mean, I did say Kentucky will beat Tennessee. I did say Kansas State will beat OK State, as you did, but my true upset, number 16 Syracuse at Notre Dame. I mean, it's going to be a tough game for Syracuse. Notre Dame's probably more talented than them overall with recruits, and if they play to their max potential, I think they're the better team. This is also a team in Notre Dame. They beat North Carolina. North Carolina is a very good team. They tend to play good teams tough, but they suck against bad teams like Stanford and Marshall. But down in South Bend, it can get loud down there. I actually no, never mind. It is in Syracuse, but I'm still keeping Notre Dame. I mean, they beat North Carolina on the road, but I think Drew Pine plays solid this game. He's not great, but he'll play solid. Audric Estime, he averages like 7 yards a carry. He'll run all over this Syracuse defense. I got Notre Dame winning this game pretty comfortably.
Wow, comfortably.
Although it's not saying much, if Drew Pine can drop some dimes, Notre Dame season will enter its prime.
Certainly it will. Thank you all for listening to the Second Take Podcast. We will see you next week. Peace.